So, have a good day everyone, and we are the group 3, and we will be discussing about Asian regionalism. So, first, let us know of what is Asian regionalism. So, Asian regionalism, guys, is the product of economic interaction, not political planning, as a result of successful, outward oriented growth strategies. Asian economies have grown not only richer but also closer together. In recent years, new technological trends have further strengthened ties among them, as have the rise of PRC and India and the region's growing weight in the global economy. But adversity also played a role. So, don't you know that in the 1997 to 1998 financial crisis dealt a severe setback to much of the region, highlighting Asia's shared interests and common vulnerabilities, and providing an impetus for regional cooperation. So the challenge now facing Asia's policymakers is simply but yet incredibly complex. Where markets have led, how should governments follow? In the early stages of Asia's economic takeoff, regional integration proceeded slowly. East Asian economies, in particular, focus on exporting to developed country markets rather than selling to each other. Initially, they specialized in simple labor-intensive manufactures. As the more advanced among them graduated to more sophisticated products, less developed economies filled the gap that they left behind. So, okay, that is um, Asian regionalism. Now, let us differentiate regionalization and globalization. But before that, let us first know of what is regionalization and globalization. So, what is regionalization? So, regionalization, guys, is the process of dividing an area into smaller segments called regions. It points to the decomposition of the world into smaller economic units and regional integration groupings. In addition, regionalization can be defined as politic administrative process by which regions emerge as relevant units of analysis for economic and political activity and welfare and service provision. So, in many cases, this notion of regionalization can be equated to notions of regionalization from above or devolution, regions being the objects of governmental reforms. Now, let us know of what are the examples of regionalization. So, examples of regionalization is free trade areas. So, don't you know that a free trade areas is a group of countries within which tariffs and non-tariff trade barriers between the members are generally abolished but with no common trade policy toward non-members. Okay, now let us another example of regionalization is a common market. So, a common market is a formal agreement where a group is formed among several countries that adopt a common external tariff, which is a tariff is a form of tax imposed on imported goods or services. Tariffs also, guys, are a common element in international trading. The primary goals of imposing in a common market, countries also allow free trade and free movement of labor and capital among the members of the group. So it means that the trade arrangement is aimed at providing improved economic benefits to all the members of the common market. Now, we know of what is regionalization, and we know also of what are the examples of regionalization. Let us move on to what is globalization. So, globalization, everyone, is a process of interaction and integration among people, companies, and governments worldwide. It describes the growing interdependence of the world's economies, cultures, and populations, brought about by cross border trade in goods and services, technology, and flows of investment, people, and information. In addition, globalization is the free movement of goods, services, and people across the world in a seamless and integrated manner. So, to understand it better, globalization can be thought of to be the result of the opening up of the global economy and the concomitant increase in trade between nations. In other words, when countries that were hitherto close to trade and foreign investment open up their economies and go global. So the result is an increasing interconnectedness and integration of the economies of the world. Okay, so now let us know the example of globalization. So, example of globalization is free trade agreements. So, what does it mean? So, free trade agreements, guys, are treaties between two or more countries designed to reduce or eliminate certain barriers to trade and investment and do facilitate stronger trade and commercial ties between participating countries. Now, we know the of what is globalization and the example of globalization, let us move on to what is the difference between globalization and regionalization. So the difference between globalization and regionalization is that globalization refers to international integration arising from the interchange of the worldview, products, and ideas, and other aspects of such as technology, and regionalization is the division of an area into smaller segments called regions. In other words, guys, um, para mas makasabot pa mo, the difference between globalization and regionalization. So, in addition, globalization, I mean, promotes the integration of economies worldwide, but regionalization tends to oppose integration and bring divisions. There is a free market and opportunity to trade internationally with globalization, while regionalization promotes monopolization. Globalization tends to profile multiculturalism, but regionalization creates boundaries in distinctive cultures. So now we know the difference between globalization and regionalization. So now let us know also the similarities between globalization and regionalization. So globalization and regionalization include that these terms are social drivers that can either unite or divide people. Also, both entities can be used in politics, society, and economies. In addition, globalization and regionalization have led to the removal of certain traditions and cultures in society. This happened when people became global village, and others distanced themselves from the rest of the world. Okay. Now, how does globalization affect regionalization? So, paano nga ba nakakaapekto ang globalization sa regionalization? So, as a result of this high rise in globalization, states have lost control over the external relations of their societies when they are exposed to mutual cultural influences. Regionalism has responded to cultural globalization through an increase in cultural identity and the rise of regionalist parties. Next is regionalism in Asia. So why are nations participating in regionalism? First is opportunities, threats, and challenges prompt nation states to band together and forge ties and alliances built on solid legal frameworks with other nations. Another is nations believe that regionalism can boast and support their national interests, economic, military, political, and even cultural context. Next is what are the advantages of regionalism in Asia? So, first is generate productivity gains, new ideas, and competition. Second, contribute the efficiency and stability of global financial markets. Third is diversify sources of global demand, helping to stabilize the world economy and diminish the risk posed. Fourth is the provide leadership. And fifth is create regional mechanism. Next is if there is advantages, of course, there will be disadvantages. So one disadvantage of regionalism is that it can be too inclusive and keep new individuals out. Okay, now I am done with my part and I will give the virtual floor to Mark Jones so that um, he will continue my discussion because he will be the one to discuss about the factors leading to a greater integration of the Asian region and how different Asian states confront the challenges of globalization and regionalization. So Mark Jones, the virtual floor is yours now.
So, there are factors leading to a greater integrations of the Asian region. Next slide, please. So, number one is trade. The world economy is intertwined with each other whether we like it or not. We all want or need something from another part of the world and global trade facilities. So, in addition, trade is essential for keeping a competitive global economy and lowers the prices of goods internationally as it spurs innovation and encourage markets to become specialized. The ability to trade also allows access to goods and services that might be of higher quality and lower cost than its domestic alternative. So next slide please. So the second one is similar culture. The cultures of Asia is diverse, but they do share many things. This makes it an easier fit during times of negotiation. So, today, the world is fast becoming a global village, with many countries enjoying a multicultural environment. Understanding different cultures is not only critical, but it also promotes sample coexistence rather. As we learn about diverse cultures, worth nothing is that all of us are individuals. Rather than generalizing, treat each other as an individual. Doing so will doing so will go a long way in creating a better environment where we can all thrive. We discuss culture and determine why understanding diverse groups is critical. Read and learn. So next slide please. The third one is common goals. The Asian region recognizes the mutual benefit of a slow integration. The territories involved are not far from each other and the industriousness of its population can work as a powerful negotiating bloc against those from other parts of the world. So, common goals are important not only because they develop creativity and innovations, but because they bring people together and encourage them to communicate problems and results. This allows for a much earlier and faster recognition of problems in the project development. Next slide, please. How different Asian states confront the challenges of globalization and regionalization. Next slide. So, globalization has had a major impact on Asia's role in the world economy. As recently as a decade ago, the developing countries of Asia accounted for only one-sixth of world output. But with many countries in the region having followed sound domestic economic policies, mobilized large amount of domestic savings that attracted substantial private capital inflows. Asia's, including Australia, Japan, and New Zealand, now accounts for about one quarter of world GDP on purchasing power parity adjusted terms. On this trend, the region could account for one third of world output by the year 2005. Next slide, please. So, challenges of globalizations and regionalizations. First, on trade. There is no need to preach and merits of open trade regimes, although a number of countries in the region still have some ways to go on trade liberalizations. Much of Asia's dynamism can be traced to the openness of its economies and to the competitiveness and transfer of technologies that this openness has encouraged. So the second one, the challenges in the financial area. At the at the domestic policy level, there is no substitute for stable microeconomic policies that gives confidence to financial markets and attract private savings. So the third one is the challenges for regional policy coordinations. So which countries becoming, I mean, with with countries becoming more closely integrated, each country has an increasing stake in the sound policies of the others. Accordingly, countries of the region can play a constructive role in encouraging each other to maintain sound policy. Next slide, please.
So, question na ta. Okay, so first question, uh, we both we will be the we will both answer the following question. Okay, let me answer first. Okay, so what are your realizations after studying your topic? So for me, I can say that in Asian regionalism, is that in Asia regionalism, a development attracting growing international interest is characterized by plurality and contest. It means that the building of regional institutions is not only a response to the need for practical cooperation in commercial, security, and other matters, but is also shaped by specific national interests and national rivalries and by different ways of thinking about region. So, for example, the tension between the People's Republic of China and Japan is one dangerous dynamic in Asia, and territorial disputes in the South China Sea have brought tension to China's relations with a number of states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So, the USA and China contest is growing in importance, and Indian strategic maneuvering is also being close watched. The term regionalism, guys, is conveys the sense of intentional top-down region building involving intergovernmental collaboration. Regionalization, on the other hand, refers to the growing density of interaction and cooperation between neighboring countries because regionalization may or may not be a basis for encouraging regionalism. There has been extensive economic, educational, and security interaction between Australia and numerous Asian countries. For instance, and yet Australia has been excluded from certain vital Asian regionalists. Now it's your turn to answer the first question. Mark.
So my realization in this topic is since the crisis, Asian financial system have improved dramatically. They have shaken up non-performing loans and low capitalizations levels, developed stronger supervision, and expanded equity and bond markets. Nevertheless, the financial system of several important Asian economies are still dominated by banks. The regulatory systems remain patchy, and their international flows, to the extent that they are liberalized, are mainly intermediated by financial centers outside the region. Building safer, deeper, and more integrated financial markets remains a high priority for Asia.
Okay, so let's move on to the second question. What is or are your personal views about the topic assigned to you? Okay, so I can say that regional integration helps countries overcome divisions that impede the flow of goods, services, capital, people, and ideas. These divisions are a constraint to economic growth, especially in developing countries. The main reason for the activation of regionalism is that Asian countries, including China, Japan, ASEAN member countries, and the United States, are now actively using regionalism as a political measure to ensure the realization of their own interests in the uncertain circumstances caused by the decline of the existing. Now it's your turn.
So my personal views about this topic is Asia's growing interdependence presents a compelling case of regional cooperations to deliver regional public goods, manage regional externalities, and help coordinate policies within the region, as well as acting together to ensure an open global economic environment. A first effort to define such as regional agenda was undertaken by the East Asian Study Group, or known as EASG, established by in 2001 by Asian Plus 3 process.
So, okay, I think we think that that would be all our discussion about Asian regionalism. Thank you for listening, and we hope you understand and gain a lot of learnings from our topic, which is Asian regionalism. God bless and thank you, everyone.